All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready, especially when it comes to safety.
You know it. Today, we're tackling a big one, a real cornerstone of OSHA, specifically 1926.1207.
Yes, the permit-required confined spaces in construction standard.
That's the one. And for any safety professionals out there listening, this is like required listening. We're going deep on this one, peeling back all the layers, really understanding what OSHA is telling us here.
Absolutely. When we talk about confined spaces, we're talking about serious hazards, so training, proper training is absolutely essential. It can be the difference between,
Between life and death, really. It's that serious.
No doubt.
So 1926.1207, it's not messing around, right? It lays it all out. Everything employers need to do to keep their workers safe in these, honestly, pretty dangerous situations.
Exactly. And we're not talking about just a quick 5-minute here's what not to do talk. This is in-depth, comprehensive training.
Right. So let's dig into the specifics.
Okay, so first off, 1926.1207A. This section makes it clear. Training, no matter what, it's a must for anyone working in a permit-required confined space.
No exceptions. And here's the really important part.
Hit me with it.
It's got to be at no cost to the employee.
Bingo. No cost. It's not optional. It's the law. It really highlights how crucial this training is. It's a right, not a privilege.
Wow. Okay, so to all our listeners out there, your boss, they can't make you pay for this training. Legally, they can't. That's pretty powerful. But why is that no-cost part so important? I mean, historically speaking.
Well, in the past, there were definitely situations where the cost of training was a barrier. Smaller companies, maybe they couldn't afford it, and sadly, that led to accidents. Some even,
Fatal accidents, yeah.
Exactly. So OSHA steps in and says, nope, training is mandatory A&D-free. It levels the playing field, makes sure everyone, no matter who they work for, gets the knowledge they need to stay safe.
Makes total sense. Okay, so we get it. Training is a must, and it's got to be comprehensive. But what does that really mean? What kind of stuff are we talking about here?
It's about going beyond just recognizing, hey, this is a confined space. Workers need a deep understanding of the hazards.
Like what kinds of hazards?
We're talking atmospheric hazards, things like toxic fumes, not enough oxygen, engulfment hazards, think grain bins. And then there's the dangers of stored energy being released unexpectedly.
So a lot of potential danger lurking in these spaces.
Right. And on top of understanding those hazards, they've got to be trained on how to control them. Each hazard has specific methods, specific equipment maybe. They need to know it all.
It's almost like they need a mental toolbox.
Right.
Packed with all the knowledge to handle any situation that might come up.
That's a good way to put it. Being prepared is key, knowing what to do in an emergency.
Absolutely. But speaking of emergencies, the standard also specifically mentions unauthorized rescue attempts.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
What's the thinking there?
Well, think about it. Someone's in trouble in a confined space and a coworker sees it and wants to help. Totally understandable. But without the right training and the right gear, they can end up becoming a victim themselves.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's adding another tragedy on top of the first.
It happens, sadly, more than you'd think. That's why training is so vital. It reinforces safe practices, emphasizes the importance of designated rescue teams and following the proper procedures. It can literally be a matter of life or death.
Okay, so we've got the who needs training and the what they need to know. Now, when does all this training happen?
Good question. 1926.12007B covers that. Initial training, that's got to happen before an employee even steps foot in a permit space. First things first. But it doesn't stop there.
Right, because things change, right.
Exactly. If their job duties change, if there's a new hazard identified, if procedures are updated, refresher training is a must. And maybe even more importantly, if there are signs, any signs, that the employee's knowledge isn't quite up to scratch, they need more training.
Okay, but how do you know? I mean, how can an employer really tell if someone needs a refresher? It's not like there's a test, right?
It's not always obvious, you're right. It takes being proactive. Employers need to keep their eyes open, look for near misses, hesitation to perform tasks. Maybe an employee is asking basic questions that make you think, maybe they need a review.
Yeah, okay, I see what you mean.
Regular evaluations can be really useful too.
Yeah.
Written tests, practical demonstrations, both are important for gauging if someone needs more training.
So it's an ongoing process, not just a one-time thing.
Precisely. Because in these environments, complacency can be just as dangerous as not knowing anything at all.
That's a really good point. All right, so OSHA is serious about this training. It's not enough to just go through the motions.
Right. It's about really getting it, being proficient.
And that's where we hit 1926.1207C.
Yep. 1926.1207C is all about proficiency. It's about being able to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. Employees need to show they can actually put those safety procedures into practice safely and effectively.
So not just knowing the steps, but being able to dance, so to speak.
Yeah, I like that. And that means the training needs to go beyond the textbook. Simulations, hands-on exercises, those are crucial for achieving true proficiency.
So this puts a lot on the shoulders of employers, right? It sounds like it's a continuous responsibility to keep training up to date.
Oh, for sure. The world of safety is constantly changing. New technology comes out, equipment changes, best practices evolve. It's a moving target. Employers have a duty to constantly evaluate their training programs, make sure they're in line with the latest standards and, the actual hazards of their specific work sites.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about the records.
Yes, the paperwork.
Right.
That's 1926.1207 NT. Employers have to keep detailed training records. Who was trained, who did the training, when it happened, what was covered, the whole 9 yards. And here's the key. These records have to be available for inspection.
So if OSHA shows up...
You better have your ducks in a row.
Right. And for anyone listening, this means you have the right to see these records. You should know if your training meets OSHA standards. It's your right.
Absolutely. Transparency is important. Remember, we're not just ticking boxes here. We're talking about creating a culture of safety, everyone understanding the risks, having the knowledge and the skills to handle them.
Well said. OSHA 1926.1207. It lays out a clear path for making sure that permit-required confined space work is done as safely and responsibly as possible.
Couldn't agree more.
And for anyone out there looking for help, guidance on implementing these standards or creating top-notch training programs, Safety One Source is here for you. We've got a whole library of resources to support your safety journey.
And remember, good training, it's an investment. It's an investment in your employees and their well-being.
That's right. Let's keep those workspaces safe, one deep dive at a time.
Here's to safety.